So our next panel is the Orange Wave in Business with an incredible group. We've got Jeff Newman, who is moderator. He is of Sovreign. We've got Jacob Seifert of AirBTC. We've got Scott Lindberg of Free Market Kids and Kit Stanwood of Golden Tallow. Please put your hands together for the Orange Wave in Business.
Thanks for having us. My name is Jeff Newman. I'm with Sovreign. We dropped the first E, it's cleaner. It's consulting for Bitcoin. And I wanted to level set on what SMBs are. That's small, medium-sized businesses. We have a panel of owner, operator, entrepreneurs, and we're going to talk about the intersection of using Bitcoin as a business owner. And after lunch will be Michael Saylor and accretive dilution and all that financing. So the population of America is 340 million. If you say how many small businesses are in the country, it's about 34 million. So 340 million people, 34 million businesses. And what's interesting is 99% of employees work for a small business. And a small business can be one person, 2, 10, and I think they cut it off around 200. So when we think about the impact of Bitcoin, it's, is the store of value enough? Is saving in Bitcoin and accepting Bitcoin enough? What about the medium of exchange? And then, of course, if you were already a Bitcoiner and you started a business, are you thinking of Bitcoin as your unit of account? Are you measuring things in sats and Bitcoin? So I just wanted to tee it up there. I think it's interesting. As we know, there's only 21 million Bitcoin. There's no way every small business could be a full coiner, but that's no reason why they can't stack sats and reward their employees. So just starting with that as numbers, I wanted to introduce the panel. So Kit, if you could introduce yourself and tell your story, I'd love to hear it.
Hi, I'm Kit Stanwood. I'm the founder and owner of Golden Tallow, a luxury skincare brand that is based on Wagyu tallow. I started in March 2023. I run a Shopify website that accepts Bitcoin on OpenNode, and it's very easy to implement. You just set up a user account, and it's very easy at that point. And then, of course, Sovreign X can help you store it as well, too.
And Scott, if you want to introduce yourself.
I'm Scott Lindberg from Free Market Kids. My wife and I founded Free Market Kids. We homeschooled our 4 children and feel very passionate about self-custody of education. And so we focus on sound money and other first principles through games, courses, and books. I also am on the board for a nonprofit called Operation Bitcoin, and it teaches the same first principle ideas, but it's to the military community. And to be just full disclosure, I'm also a consultant at Sovreign.
And Jacob.
Hey, I'm Jake from AirBTC, co-founder with my co-founder Andre. He's in South Africa, and we've created this platform to really bring Bitcoin to the everyday person, and you can do Bitcoin mining with a short-term rental anywhere in the world. And the idea is that we go hand in hand with communities as they build across the planet and really help bolster the circular economy as it grows. And hopefully we can bring someone from across the planet to come and spend sats after they rent one of our places, if there's opportunities for them to utilize their Bitcoin in any way they can through excursions or meals or really anything, then we can actually help bolster the circular economy and help the growth from within.
That's great. So one of the questions I had was, were you a Bitcoiner before you started your business? And how do you think about running your business as a Bitcoiner? And then part of that is, do you have a Bitcoin business, or do you have a normal, traditional business that could exist in the fiat world, but by running it as a Bitcoiner, that's your competitive advantage, that's your differentiator? And so, Jacob, I think it's easy with you. AirBTC is a play on words of Airbnb, and so how are you different than Airbnb?
Well, there's many ways. We don't have billions of dollars or billions of dollars worth of debt, I think the main differentiator is we're working from first principles, right? we wanted to create something that would add value and also this culture that we have. It's, you know, we do a lot of online visits with each other and Zoom calls. I know we've done a few. I think getting people back together is a part of, you know, what Bitcoin, the ethos is, and the peer-to-peer nature of transactions, and really getting back to first principles. You know, I think, I don't know, I'm lost on what the question was. But.
So
There's like 5 questions.
Yeah.
So Scott, you remember the world before Bitcoin, 2009, and now you're an owner-entrepreneur post-2009. So you remember the before times. What is your perspective seeing the world adopt Bitcoin, you adopt Bitcoin, and starting a small business, your own private company, on the Bitcoin standard? What does that mean to you?
Well, we started Free Market Kids before we knew about Bitcoin. It just so happened, I mean, I read a lot of the same things that everyone in the Bitcoin community has read. Creature from Jekyll Island and other things. And so those principles were already there. I just didn't have the framework of the words that we use now. So it was 2020 is when I would say I became a Bitcoiner, when I finally said this is something. We didn't go full time until 2 years later. So it's only been 3 years that we've been full time on it. So it's about being part of something bigger than yourself. So if you are a homeschooling parent, all parents, you're investing in everything you have in something. It's a cause bigger than yourself. And when I look at Bitcoin, that's a common theme there. That this is something bigger than it's the infinite game that was mentioned earlier. And if you don't get the education right, it doesn't matter what tool you bring to them. So Constitution is great, yet somehow a couple hundred years later we have the Patriot Act, right? Well, why did that happen? So Bitcoin is great. What's going to happen in the future? Well, we have to educate people so they have critical thinking skills and they're able to challenge. So Bitcoin, it just fit the ethos of what we were already trying to do. And then from Bitcoin, that led to Austrian economics and some other things. So I didn't know I was a Bitcoiner until I found it, and then I'm like, okay, this framework I understand. And then I had been in the Army as well, so the idea of doing something that's bigger than yourself, like this, the whole mission made sense. This is the right time for us to invest our energy in what we want to have going forward. And so the Bitcoin came second, but it felt like we were already Bitcoiners, we just didn't know it.
Kit, did you start your business after becoming a Bitcoiner?
Yes, so my first touch point was in 2014. My friend was using it as currency back then on a website I'm sure some of you all have heard about. And then I tried to figure out how to buy it on the forums, but it was a little more confusing. So I had a second touch point in 2019 off of Robinhood, which I didn't, at the time you couldn't withdraw off of Robinhood. I think you can now. But I went down the rabbit hole. I read Seifert book, The Bitcoin Standard. I've read all of his other books too. The Fiat Standard is also really great and honestly touches on a lot of the parts that I'd like to talk about with products and the ingredients that go into those products. But after reading that and getting on Twitter, becoming well-known in the space, communicating with others, building relationships, I worked at Bitcoin Magazine and the conference, so I went really deep into the whole. When my business relationship with them ended, I tried to get back in some of the tech and the fiat world with the career, but it just, after working at Bitcoin Magazine, it was way too much fun working with people who have the same values and ethics as you. The Zoom calls just hit a little different, so I decided to start my own business at that point. And Bitcoin has really helped me with the low time preference future outlook, because I know as I stockpile Bitcoin through OpenNode, and just to note, you can put a percentage of your sale in US dollar or Bitcoin, which is really nice, because as a small business, I really need cash flow to pay for my subscriptions and new inventory and things like that. So currently, like my Wagyu farmer, she does accept Bitcoin, so I could pay her in Bitcoin, but some of the other vendors don't accept Bitcoin yet, so it's still a mixture of that. But eventually I'll be able to loan against that Bitcoin with a website like Let-In, and if I use 10% of my stack, and then the compound annual growth rate of Bitcoin is between 14% and 49%, depending on the time frame you're looking at, last 10 years or 4 years or whatever, then basically the loan is Bitcoin's gonna rise in value, and I'll be able to cover the loan and the interest, and that's such a competitor advantage against everyone else that's out there, and it helps me stay afloat as a small business, because right now it's just me, so hopefully Bitcoin will also help me hire employees and get more inventory, more products out, so it's really exciting.
Yeah. Do you think of like the mindset of Bitcoin where if you can start a business, take a risk, and in your first epoch, your first halvening, stack sats, and should the halvening increase the value, in dollar terms at least, of the Bitcoin, do you think that that can change your long-term planning for 4, 8, 12 years out? And just how do you think about your business in the world on a Bitcoin standard versus trying to make plans or take risks or think long-term on the fiat standard?
Yeah, absolutely. So it changes my thinking of like, oh, I'm going to be able to get out like 3 or 4 products in the future versus like fiat currency. You're running up a sand dune and it's raining and you're like falling down because the currency is basically collapsing under your feet. It's like, am I going to be able to buy 500 more jars of my current product and I only have like 1 product? That's the big difference. Like it's just going to be able to help me grow so much faster and hire people, and it's just so much more abundant than worrying about, am I going to be able to afford things? I'm going in debt, and then interest on the debt is going to be suffocating, and then people are, my employees at that time are either going to get laid off or they're constantly looking for a new job, and it's hurting the company culture at that point. And I think there's another panel talking about the American dream. And like, I'd like to have the American dream where people are doing their, God-given gifts that they're good at, because that helps the productivity and the quality of everything as well. So Bitcoin fixes so much stuff.
Absolutely. John Balcom, also with Sovreign, is doing the New American Dream tomorrow for the next generation. So same question. How's your mindset and long-term planning on the Bitcoin standard? Thinking in epochs, 4 to 8, 12 years. Is it different?
Yeah, well, I think for all of us as Bitcoiners, we have just this different perspective on time, right? And gentleman backstage, Jeff Booth, always talks about, low time preference. And, I think with a long enough outward view, everyone should be bullish on Bitcoin. And, if your business holds, a majority of its assets in Bitcoin, I think overall it'll be amazing for the growth potential. I mean, obviously there are risks involved, it just depends on how long you hold it. So, but for us, I mean, we accept Bitcoin, we want to hold Bitcoin. It's hard to I think the mindset that Bitcoiners have in general is this, and they paint it on a picture and everyone talks about it. Michael will talk about it, store of value, best money savings technology in the world, which it is, but also I think we need to spend and replace, and that's my personal view. That's the view of our business as well. I think we should all get in the attitude of spending and replacing, just constantly buying a little bit, and if there is a way for you to make purchases in Bitcoin or have goods or services for Bitcoin, I think that's a net positive for everyone. And I think we get to a faster growth trajectory when there's more Bitcoin in more hands, right? So that's my perspective, and I'm fighting an uphill battle.
It's early. Yes.
I mean, Jeff, can I give you a slow? So just to be a little contrarian, when you take a low time preference perspective and you have physical goods, it will really shake you. So if you have a long lead time, so one of the things we make are physical games. Long lead time to design it, to have it produced, by the time it's shipped to you, and then you're got to think about your advertising. And if you're looking at Bitcoin, if you're using it as a unit of account, that's painful because the people who are buying it from you they're on a fiat standard. They're looking at it and they're saying, okay, your gross margin is whatever. From your point of view, you could be underwater because the next best alternative was to actually take that money and just go buy Bitcoin. And that's why I was highlighting understanding why you're doing it. If you're a small business in Bitcoin, I think you just need to be real with yourself about why you're doing it. So I know why I'm doing it, but it's really painful because I have inventory that didn't sell as I expected, and I know how much I paid for that and what that was in Bitcoin terms. So if you're using a Bitcoin standard and you look at that, then you may not contribute any more products because you're saying my family's going to be worse off if I make this decision. So I find that it's a mix. I feel like there's a lot of purpose with it. You're impacting other people. But if you're truly following the principles, sometimes it leads to, it's like a gut check. So for example, I talked to a lot of other vendors that were in the bazaar at the conference. If you haven't gone to the big conference, there's a whole section called the bazaar. It's like a market of people like me who are trying to sell physical goods. And I talked to them, I have friends that are also selling, and they struggle with this concept that you're investing your Bitcoin. Everybody's saying hodl, hodl, hodl. And you're out there investing it, and then you're watching what happens as it changes. And you have to do a gut check when you're making that decision.
So we live in a mixed world, both Bitcoin and fiat, and
Yeah,
what percentage are you, like, say I have a Bitcoin business, is that 50%? Without sharing too many private details, but do you operate 6 months cash flow in dollars, or are you all in? Have you accepted that Bitcoin's money, where you just are on Bitcoin and you pay your bills in Bitcoin?
Right, for me, I've gotten about 10% of my sales in Bitcoin, and so whatever sales come in, I use the percentage slider on OpenNode, and I change it within my preferences, what I need that month to pay my bills. So usually I have it on 50%, but sometimes I could slide it down to like 10% or whatever, but I am trying to capture a good bit of that because I do plan on loaning against it later on, which will help me like speed my growth up. But to your point, like in the beginning, it is very difficult because when I started Golden Tallow at the time, I also started a rental business, sort of like a Turo, but I also had private insurance as well. And just thinking about if I had just put that capital into Bitcoin, like how much more money I would have had is pretty insane. 3x since then, basically. So it's painful, but also like running a business, you have to be a little insane and crazy to do it. So I enjoy it. Maybe we like suffering, I don't know. But you have to love it, and you have to think long term, like this is gonna grow and this is gonna give me freedom. I love waking up and doing the things that I want to do that day. The 9-to-5 life just wasn't for me for many reasons. So I really love having control over my time, and I'm a person that likes, controlling my time and my energy, and of course my Bitcoin too on that.
Yeah, as Jeff Booth said, with the cognitive dissonance, to wake up in the morning to work in Bitcoin, whatever that means to you, is a dream come true. Is to have this conversation and help people. And if small business owners across America understood a tenth of what we understand as people that went down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, would America be a healthier country, right? And again, I'm looking at the perspective of 99% of employees work for a small business owner. And right now, Bitcoiners are a small group, but what if business owners use their businesses as vehicles to become orange-pilled and adopt Bitcoin? What if they, were able to pay their employees with benefits, help their employees stack sats and maybe lock it up for 4 years and give it to them as a reward? Talking to interested companies like that, and how do you see that, growing your business? And let's say next halving after, April 2028, let's say you hire people. Would you be able to stack sats and give them Bitcoin rewards and help people lift them up with job creation? Do you see that as a future goal?
I do for sure. It's hard to think short term. It's easier to think long term. For our business and what I think about future employment, I think the best employees or best partners or best anyone you want to surround yourself in business, like if they are Bitcoiners, we have this one thing in common. It doesn't matter what part of the world you come from or where you went to school. We have this common thread, and I think that that is a bond that is not so easily broken. And I think that this is kind of utopian thought to like, hey, bring everybody with you on this, you know, on your trek. I think we should try and distribute as many sats as we can and get everyone on board. And you know, if anyone's willing to work for Bitcoin, I think the younger generation is definitely more keen to digital assets and this cashless world that is more and more common. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible in the future for these kind of initiatives to make sense.
I mean, I'll just be the contrarian again. I think you have to be a little bit cautious because there's been people in this space, there's organizations where that was a dream, where I looked at other people and I'm like, man, you're at whatever Bitcoin organization. And then they had to downsize because something happened. And so, I mean, no one wants to go through that. I'm looking at this a little bit more as if you knew that what the internet was going to be in 1990, like how would you assess things? That's more how I look at the business. So if, like Representative Davison was talking about using Bitcoin to pay a wire transfer, if it matches your need to hire people, then you should do it. If it matches your need to do a balance sheet strategy, then you should do it. If you have a physical building and you need heat, then maybe mining is your thing. But I don't think you should get overexcited and just say this is some sort of panacea and are you on Bitcoin or not. I think a little bit of measure to figure out which pieces of this thing apply to you goes a long way to try to avoid some of those pain points. Because it's great to wave the flag and say, hey, I'm a Bitcoin company. But then if you face a painful decision later, like just, I don't know. I just think you just have to take a step back and measure which piece of this amazing technology is appropriate for your business at this time, and then you can work towards the future, you know, with it. But I'd be a little cautious of getting out over my skis and trying to pay someone in Bitcoin. Like I don't think that would be the right thing for us to do. I'm not against it, and I certainly am willing to be paid in Bitcoin. But I don't think if you don't do that somehow that you're not a true Bitcoiner or something. You need to find out what's right for you, because only if you're bringing value will your company actually survive and be able to continue to take care of those employees.
But you could also probably reach different talent by offering Bitcoin for payment.
100%.
So like
100%. And it's appropriate for you then I would say that's appropriate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we all know if we've gifted some people some Bitcoin and they didn't put any thought into it, they lose it, right? And so that could be the downside of employee benefits if there's no responsibility and caution with it. The good news is, you know, we're later going to hear about unlocking trapped capital and having Bitcoin go into 401ks and S&P 500 through publicly traded companies, and that's a way to lift up everyone for the benefits of Bitcoin. But in your case, I guess it would have to be opt-in. Your employees would have to raise their hand and say that they want to, you know, take the first steps. What about suppliers? Kit, you were mentioning how, I was asking you last night, did you have any suppliers that work with you in Bitcoin, and what's that like?
Yes, my Wagyu tallow farmer out in Wyoming, she uses Shopify, and Shopify's been really good about allowing people to accept different cryptocurrencies. Of course, we only want Bitcoin is the only good one. And so she's accepted it. I haven't gotten to the point of paying her yet. I will, you know, focus on getting to a certain stack level of Bitcoin, and then maybe after that start thinking about paying in Bitcoin. But then, of course, yeah, once you sell it, then there's a taxable event with the capital gains. I'm doing my own QuickBooks, and I will hire an accountant to do some of my taxes, but it does get kind of confusing, and trying to find really good help that can help you manage all of that. It can get overwhelming as like a one-person business for sure.
Yeah, we had to redo our website, and we found a Bitcoiner who could do that, and we paid her in Bitcoin. So but then it was, if I go to, our supplier happens to be in China, and they're not going to take Bitcoin. So, not that I want to part with my Bitcoin anyway. So, again, I think it's going to be, You just applied it to the situation. So, yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, we're in DC. We talked about this. We're guessing the government's in the audience. So I got permission. I represent the state of New York. We've got Florida, Kentucky, and Virginia. So we represent different states. I guess the question now is, how can the government, whatever that means, how can someone help you that actually wants to help small businesses in America, specifically your state, just make your life easier? Like, what could the government do to be a good partner? I know some Bitcoiners are libertarians and just say, leave me alone. But what if someone actually does want to help you? We talked about de minimis. What's top of mind? One thing that you'd want someone to tap you on the shoulder afterwards and talk to you about?
I would definitely think the $600 or less shouldn't be taxed. I think we should get rid of capital gains with Bitcoin. I mean, if I can ask for that. But yeah, that's a pretty big ask. But why not shoot your shot, if you will? But I don't know what the last part of that question was actually. Sorry. So
I mean, I agree with that. That short term, the best thing they could do is get rid of capital gains, just bar none. That would just be, if you want to make this Bitcoin capital of the world. I do think long term, the bureaucracy is so large. The thing, like for example, with the FinCEN and the mixing strategy, what they're trying to do with the Patriot Act, if you take the game theory standpoint, look forward, work back, you're not going to have a store of value if you destroy the second layer. And you're not going to have a second layer if you're targeting developers and people with their own wallets, things like that. And so that mixing, I don't know what they call it, proposal or idea, whatever FinCEN calls it, that's very dangerous long term. Not to Bitcoin, but to the US. And so short term capital gains, long term, I would say you need to let the free market, let the people develop without being in fear of going to jail or being fined or whatever other kind of thing you can put on there.
Yeah,
and don't mess with self-custody also.
Yeah, to go off
I
of that,
remembered.
Totally. I agree. 0% capital gains tax, hands down for sure. Also, custody is very important to me. And same with like policies and stuff, like the BOI, the beneficiary ownership information. I've never written into the government, but I emailed out twice, and then I was on Twitter, and shout out to Trump to getting rid of that. I think Elon Musk and Terrence Williams was also in on that and got rid of it that day that I was on Twitter, and it just took a load off my back. I was like, man, I already report this information, and then it's just another step. All the other paperwork, I'm an LLC in Colorado and Virginia. I'm a foreign entity in Virginia, so it starts to add up, and it does start to feel like they're attacking us, and like, why am I gonna do business when I could go to jail for selling tallow because I accept Bitcoin? Like, that's crazy. Right. So I think you have to like work with us. We wanna be here, we wanna help you. I'm glad that the government's interested in learning about it and working with us, and I hope that they continue to do that, or else there are other countries like El Salvador that look very appealing. Maybe not that one, but there's other ones out there, right?
That's perfect segue. So who's been to El Salvador?
Not yet, but.
Okay. And there's a panel tomorrow on it. And so my question is El Salvador the model of a friendly government that treats you like a partner? And could you, as a patriotic American, see yourself moving to El Salvador to do your business if you can do it online?
I think it's definitely top of mind for many, many people. I think a lot of people in the industry were hoping that this administration would be more loving and caring to the Bitcoin community and want to bolster the public-private partnership kind of play that could possibly happen. But they're definitely doing it in El Salvador, and it's what they're doing is actually quite amazing. Things take there's a lot of time that's involved with it, but it's very inexpensive to set up your business in El Salvador actually. And if I would encourage everyone to go there, because it's a place where you can go still today, even though all this Twitter headlines that, the IMF and Bukele's not buying Bitcoin. Like it's just a bunch of noise, and all the infrastructure for the payments is still there, and people are using Bitcoin every single day. So I would encourage everyone to go down there, stay at an AirBTC, and then also just spin your sats.
El Salvador, beautiful. Been there a couple times. Highly recommend you don't trust, just go verify for yourself and go see it. For Free Market Kids, though, our mission is really here. So again, I go back to what we started with, and then if we're going to make a difference and really help people from an education standpoint to accept what this technology is, then what we see as our next step is being able to reach outside of the people who might be in this room who are already open to Bitcoin. So think of, for example, going to homeschooling conferences and other types of non-Bitcoin venues, and really trying to help people understand the first principle ideas of what we're talking about. I'm not trying to get them to be mining technicians or financial planners or anything else. Just first principles. What is money? Talk about energy. Talk about first principles of things like freedom of speech and property rights. Like, we have a lot of work to do here. And so as much as I love El Salvador, for us, this is where our home base will stay. That's where our mission is. And it's also consistent with Operation Bitcoin. We're open to helping veterans anywhere in the world, but we're heavy U.S. based. So I was in the Army, and the other folks that are in the group, it's very U.S. heavy, and so that's the right place for us right now to make a difference.
I know. So, there's red states and blue states. What does it take for your state to be an orange state?
My congressman is Massey, so I don't think I don't know if he's a Bitcoiner yet, although he was on Safe's podcast.
There's a funnel for that. Yeah.
What's that?
There's a funnel for that.
And we're an hour and a half from Congressman Davidson's district. So as far as the whole state, you have to be able to do what you can do, what your next step is. I don't think any one entity is going to solve it for everyone. And so I think everybody has to do their part. Like, if you're an artist, you do art. If you do AirBTC, you do whatever your piece is. So I don't know what it would take. Perhaps mining. We do have coal in the state. We have some miners in the state. If they could do better with taxes, then perhaps they could attract more miners that way. But I don't actually know how to make it orange. Yeah.
I don't know. I live in Florida. It's I think it's kind of very similar to Texas, and the governor is trying to do amazing things like getting rid of property tax, which is also very interesting. But yeah, I think it really doesn't. I think the state does matter in some way, shape, or form. But if the policy of the federal government, it kind of supersedes state law. So I would just hope that we can just not tax Bitcoin for capital gains, and I think everyone will be very, very happy. And maybe it'll make people want to use Bitcoin as money.
But I mean, there's something you said though. If I could just jump back in there. So you could stand up and go to your county clerk. We went to our county clerk and said, because Carlos is here somewhere, I don't know where he is, and we said, hey, you can use Simple Proof's idea, and you can kind of stamp that this is the election results. If every Bitcoiner did that in every county, then collectively we could move the needle. And it doesn't just have to be then. I think a lot of people in the space would naturally say, hey, I don't want to be involved, and I haven't written before. But at some point, how far do you get pushed before you say, it's time to stand up? And so maybe at the county levels and stuff, we also, your local meetups, that in-person, that being around, giving a support group to other people so you can talk to other like-valued people and explain things, that goes a long way. And I do think that is something we can take action on in a local setting.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like, I'm international. I've sold in Canada a couple times, Switzerland, Germany, Norway. So, like, for Virginia, if they want to keep me, they got to just stay friendly. I harass me with letters from the IRS because, you know, I've hired an accountant to do it. I do my own QuickBooks as, you know, as well as I possibly can. I had a Bitcoiner help me, like that's a CPA, help me. Shout out to FOMO21. And so I would like to continue to hold my own keys also. Like self-custody is very important. If I would move states, like I'm there for family right now, but if you take that away from a state level, I will move that weekend. Maybe that day, you know, like. So that's where I stand on that.
Oh, I'm in New York. I won't talk about New York. It's my personal problem. Do Bitcoiners support you? Can they support you? Like, how can Bitcoiners support you? Is it just spend your Bitcoin?
Yeah, spend and replace your Bitcoin
Yeah.
for Tallow. I just have one product right now. It's a face cream, and I'd love to get more products out that have really good ingredients, and I'd love to continue that. A lot of ingredients on the market have seed oils or synthetics, additives in it, which isn't very good for your health because our skin absorbs the material that we put on top of it. So it's going into your bloodstream, and long-term that can add up over time. So I think healthy, clean ingredients is really the way of the future, and a lot of people are waking up to that because healthcare and insurance is just through the roof.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, great.